do you teach your clients how important is portion control, do you think, in this whole mix?
Right. All right. I have kind of an in-between perspective on portion control. I love the perspective of intuitive eating, which is the idea of eating only when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. I think there's a lot of value in that. I think a lot of us have lost touch with that kind of intuition and those kind of hunger satiety cues. So I think it's a great overall goal to get more in touch with our intuition in terms of eating. But I also think it opens things up to be very vague for some people who might need more rules and guidance. And also for people who haven't had someone to show them how much they should be eating. And I mean, the portions in restaurants are out of control these days. They have been for a long time. So not having the guidance of how much your body needs to fuel itself sets someone up to not succeed with that lovely perspective if they're not given the right guidance to start with. On the flip side, calorie counting becomes obsessive if we do it for too long. It minimizes, or what am I looking for? It kind of has a reductionist view of food, so that you're looking at a plate of sweet potato and all you're thinking of is how many calories that is. That's not a good way to think about it, because sweet potatoes are a wonderful, nourishing food. They bring you lots of vitamins and minerals. And yes, maybe you need to think about roughly how much you want to put on your plate, but you also don't want to get stuck in the trap of counting every single calorie and micromanaging your day. So my perspective is somewhere in between those. So I like to help people with the guidance they need to know how much to put on their plate approximately in order to give their body the fuel it needs to thrive. And while we're doing that, we're moving in the direction of learning when you're actually hungry and when you're actually full, because no 2 days are going to be the exact same. And people differ from the average. So what a calculation might tell me I need to eat might not be exactly right, because my metabolism might be slightly different from the average. And also, if I go for a run for 2 hours tomorrow, I'm obviously going to need more fuel, more energy than if I sat at my desk all day. So there's kind of this sweet spot between having the guidance and the structure to know what you should be doing to give your body the fuel that it needs, and also tapping into the cues that your body is giving you about how much it needs. So that's kind of where I live.
Yeah, and I think that's a really a healthy place to start, especially because I know I've gotten, in my beginning stages, I got really obsessive about yo-yo dieting and calories and, keeping track of everything. And I don't think that's necessarily a really healthy place to be in, because then you're ruled by food all day, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I want to be free from that, where I can enjoy my life, right? So that I don't have to think about food all day.
Exactly. Who wants to think about food all day?
Not me. Not me. So yeah, I think that's really super important. So maybe you can talk about a little bit more about how we would go about, give us some tools that we can use to go in that direction.
So some tools. So thinking about what you're putting on your plate, in terms of a vegan diet, which is where I specialize, it's not the same as the, portion of protein, portion of vegetables, portion of starch, because plant foods have all of those things in them. So beans are thought of as the vegan protein food, but they also have complex carbohydrates. They also have lots of fiber. So they're kind of like a mix of various food groups. So when people shift to a vegan diet, they often find it difficult to set up what their plate should look like, because it's not like the food guide kind of organized plate. But generally what I suggest is to get at least half of your plate of vegetables, and then you can get the rest of beans, whole grains, and starchy vegetables like sweet potatoes or squash. And I usually put in some nuts or seeds, or I make a dressing out of nut or seed butter, so like a tahini based dressing, a cashew butter based dressing, something like that. So that's kind of a good overall base of what to look for on a balanced plate. And then through the day, you want to make sure that you get a variety of different foods to make sure you're getting a variety of the different nutrients. One of the important ones for vegans specifically is one amino acid called lysine, which you get from quinoa, from beans and legumes, so chickpeas, lentils, stuff like that. I usually suggest to vegans that you have one serving of one of those foods per day. And then other than that, it's just basically getting a variety of various foods. And I'm trying to think of a general tool I can suggest for portions, but it really is individual. So I think the best thing for that is to work with a nutritionist to come up with portion sizes that work for your energy needs.
Yeah, I think that that's definitely important. But I think I'm going to ask you to clarify, because I think that some people, when they go on a vegan diet or any diet in general, or a healthy diet, I think they think that they can eat all that they want, right? Because a lot of people say, or I've heard a lot about, well, if I go on this, I can eat all that I want, right? And it becomes, it just becomes something that is maybe a mind game that we play with ourselves. So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, because I think that's an important subject.
I would love to talk about that because I see it so often. I see it a lot in the raw vegan world. And when I say vegan, there are a lot of people out there who will assume that I also mean raw, and I don't. When I'm talking about chickpeas are cooked, brown rice is cooked, quinoa is cooked, my sweet potatoes, my squash are cooked. So there is a difference between raw, between vegan, and there's also a difference between gluten-free, which I won't get into at the moment because that's a whole other topic. But a lot of people lump those three things in together. So I'm vegan, but I'm not raw, and I'm not gluten-free. So the raw perspective often goes on that train of thought of eat as much as you want because your body's gonna burn it and it's healthy stuff, so don't starve yourself. There's a range. 1,200 calories or below is definitely too little for anyone over 14 years old. So there is a danger of eating too little, particularly because I see a lot of marketing around 1,200 calorie diets. So I don't recommend that. But I also don't go to the other extreme of eat everything you want because it's healthy stuff and you're not going to gain weight. It is possible to eat so many bananas that you gain weight, right? I mean, it's healthy food, and I like the perspective of not restricting ourselves, but there is a point at which it becomes too much. And so I think it's about finding that balance and enjoying your food without restricting yourself, but not going overboard.
Yeah.